Hello, I'm Rick Stivers with YoungMartin'sReels. Today, we are going to be working on this J.C. Higgins fishing reel. It is a monospool reel. And we're going to take this thing apart, clean it up, see if we can get it up and running good. It doesn't, actually it runs pretty well right now. It just feels a little loose and it's a little loud. It just seems like everything in it seems to be a little bit loose. So we're going to take this thing apart and get it serviced and get it back ready to go fishing again. So we're going to start off by taking out this screw, and then we're going to move over to taking out this screw. Well, there we go. Here we can pop this handle off. If the handle gets jammed like this, what you can do is just take your star adjuster and just unscrew it, and it'll pop the handle right off. Don't force it. Okay, take that off. All right, see what we got here. We got a sleeve that we have to take off, and now we are ready to take the side screws out. Okay, now we're going to see if the post screws and the base plate screws are the same size. They are not. The base plate screws are a little bit shorter. Alright, it takes the side plate off. And it all seems to be working fairly well, but we're going to take it apart. It looks like somebody's cleaned it and taken all the grease out and then put it back together without any grease, which is probably why it's so loud. Take the spool off. I'm going to go ahead and take this the rest of the way apart just so I can scrub this easily. You should not have to take all that apart to get it done, but I'm going to do it just to make cleaning a bit easier. Okay, and now because the handle side plate is thicker, well, doesn't really appear to be any thicker, but the screws for that side are considerably shorter than the base plate screws on the other side. Interesting, they don't seem to need to be. Okay, finish taking this apart. Two more screws out. And let's take this side plate off. There we go. Keep it on this side. That side plate will keep over there with all those parts. Here's the screws for this other side plate. We'll put them over here. And now all we've got left to do is remove the bridge. Okay, much like a pin reel, this one doesn't have threads on the portion of the screw that goes through the top of the bridge because that's where the springs go. All right, now that should come out. All right, and that's very similar to the spring setup in the pin reels. I imagine, it reminds me of the Monofill 25 reel that I took apart and serviced. Very similar. There's the anti-reverse dog or paw, whichever one you want to call it. All right, now let's see if I can punch this pin out. There we go. Out comes the pin. And the sleeve for the anti-reverse comes off. And now that brings us over here. There is a hard washer on the bottom of the gear here. All right. And then on the front side, we have a compression washer. And then we have a keyed washer and a leather washer. And then we have an eared washer under that. And then another leather washer there. And then another keyed washer. And another leather washer. There we go. And there's all of our parts. All right, what I'm going to do is we're going to zoom out so you can see all of the parts. I am going to transfer all this over to my cleaning tray, clean them all up, and then bring them back and put them back on this tray. But all of my parts will be cleaned on this tray off camera because it doesn't come through very well on the camera on this silver tray, but it is excellent for cleaning parts. So I'm going to move everything over here onto this one. And when we come back in a minute, everything will be back transferred, all clean and transferred back onto here. All right. Oh, also, I see that there's something I still have yet to take off, which is the yoke, the pinion gear, and the jack plate. So let me take those off real quick. All right, take off the jack plate. You simply push down a little bit on the yoke, maneuver the jack plate over off of the post. Let's see here. Now it's going to be easier to go with it up there. Okay, and it doesn't want to come, so we'll go ahead and remove the pinion and yoke first, then we'll take the jack plate off. Watch these springs, do not lose them. Okay. And this jack plate still doesn't want to come off. Somehow, it's got itself wedged under there. There. Okay, now we are fully disassembled, and we'll be back in a minute with nice clean parts. Now we're ready to start reassembling. We're going to start off with this side over here, this side plate. And first thing we're going to do is make sure our clicker is working, and it is. And I have cleaned it, so we're gonna come back and add just a little bit of grease to it. Okay, then we're gonna come back and add our chrome plate back on the side, trim ring. Put that on. And we'll start off with one of the post screws. Go ahead and slip it in. And screw it on. And that's going to help hold everything together. Okay, let's go ahead and do the next one. Remember, the short screws go in the base plate. Long screws go in the post. Now go ahead and tighten the post screws up. And we'll be able to secure those a little better once we tighten down the other side. We're going to put a drop of oil or two into the bushing. And we can go ahead at that point and set our spool back in. Like so. Got our clicker engaged. There we go. It should click, and it does. Go ahead and disengage it because it's easier to maneuver without it engaged. Okay, get that over out of the way. And now we're ready to reassemble our bridge assembly. Okay, we're going to start off with putting this sleeve back on the post. And this is going to get a little, we're going to put a little grease on this, even though it normally is oiled. We're going to go ahead and grease it. When you oil through this screw, the screw on the end of the crank handle, that's going to drop oil down in here. But we're going to go ahead and grease it just a little bit anyway. And then put the pin back in. Which is sometimes easier said than done. Make sure that that pin goes all the way down. If it doesn't, then when you try to slide these washers on, they'll get jammed up on it. But if you want to know if you got it good enough, just go ahead and slide one of your keyed washers on. All right, next, we're going to install this hard washer, which goes underneath the gear. Go ahead and put the gear on next. Before we do that, let's go ahead and grease the gear. I have a bad habit on these reels of forgetting to grease the main gear until after I've got it together, and it's a lot harder to do once you've done that. So let's go ahead and grease it now and be done with it. All right. Oh, there's that washer. Let's go ahead and put just a small dab of grease on that washer because it's got to be able to spin on it. Slide that down. Now we're ready to start reassembling the drag stack. And that's going to start off with this leather washer. I'll go ahead and put a little grease on the leather washer. Rub it in good and then slide it into place. Then we're going to put our keyed washer on. Then we're going to put another one of these fabric or leather washers on after we've greased it. There we go. Slide it down on there. Now we're going to put the eared washer, and the eared washer's got these little tabs, one on each side, and they fit into slots right here on the gear. So rotate it around till you get it to drop into that slot, like so, and then press it down. And then we're going to grease up our final fabric washer, whether it be leather or fabric, whatever it's made out of, and slide that down. And then comes our last keyed washer. Slide that down. And then the final washer that's going to go on this. And I like to grease this part right here to keep this from falling apart during assembly. We're going to put this tension washer on right here. Grease it a little bit. And then I'm going to grease the shaft just a little bit. And I'm going to slide this sleeve on. And that should hold all of that together during assembly. Now we're going to come back over here to our side plate assembly. And the pieces that we've got to put on over here are going to be these two springs. These are our yoke springs. They're going to move the yoke, supply tension for the yoke. Okay, then we've got our yoke itself. That's this piece. It looks like that because it kind of resembles an oxen yoke. We're going to put some grease on the edge of that where it slides. And then we're going to take this part here. And see the cutout right here? That cutout has to mate with the spool right here. That's going to mate just like that. So make sure that that's facing outward from here so that it will go inward on here to go into the spool. All right. We're going to take and grease up the pinion gear right there on its shoulder where it has to slide in the yoke. We're going to put a little grease on the pinion gear itself where it meshes with the main gear. And then we're going to put a little bit of grease right here on the end where it has to mesh with this spool. That will help it slide together better. And just before we put all of this back in here and set it together, we're going to put a couple of drops of oil into that bushing. All right, remember that the yoke is going to go down with that cutout facing towards the spool. And then you're going to want to take this whole thing. It's kind of small, so it's a little harder than the larger ones actually. Push it down like so. And we're ready at that point to put our jack plate back on. Now our jack plate is going to slide over the top. And it's got to come over here and flip this lever that way. There you go. And then that jack plate's going to slide in under there and sit down on there, and it's going to hold this yoke assembly in place like that. All right. Now we're just about ready to reinstall the bridge and the spring and the anti-reverse dog. And we're going to zoom in a little bit for this procedure. Okay, we're going to set this here. I'm going to put it in my hand. And we're going to take and set this down inside this assembly like so. Push down on the yoke a little bit. Make sure that it's lined up, and it is. Okay, I'm going to get it down in there. The yoke does not want to go down on there. There we go. It is not fitting down. Oh, I see. It's right here. There. Now it's down in there. Once you get it down in there, then rotate this around, but don't take it all the way yet. Okay, we don't want it all the way around. What we're looking at is getting this reverse dog, anti-reverse dog, in here. And we need one of your all-threaded screws for your bridge. It's going to come up through here, go into this hole, and now your anti-reverse dog is going to fit onto that right there. Now see how it's got the straight top shoulder? That's what your leaf spring here is going to fit onto. Okay, so you're going to set your leaf spring in there, and this is the hard part because you've got to hold all this together while you take this leaf spring and get it to fold around this post right here. Like that. See how it fits? Let me bring it up and we'll get a little more focus. All right, see how that fits in there? Just like that. Okay. Reset our focus. Bring this around. All right, now that's up in the hole where it belongs. We've got this screw over this hole here. So we're going to hold all that in place and bring it around and go ahead and screw that screw in some of the way. Okay, we don't want it all the way tight, just a little bit. Now we're going to go across from there and use one of these that has just a little bit of threads on it. It has the big clear shaft, and we're going to put that in, and we're going to rotate this around until it lines up to that shaft. And right now it's not doing that. Which means I might have tightened this one down too much. Okay, there we go. Okay, bring the screw up. You can see it when it lines up in the hole. And if it's not lining up in the hole, you might need a little punch or an awl or an ice pick in my case to line it up. Okay, then put your screw in. All right, that's two of them in. Take the other one. It is partial threaded. Slide it in. And it looks like it should go. There we go. And then the final one with all the threads goes back in the other side. Now, go ahead and snug them down. They don't have to be super tight. They just have to be good and snug, like so. There it goes. Okay, it's not dropping down because it's not aligned, because it's not on the spool. Okay, give it a little alignment there for the spool, and it's going to lock in. All right. Okay. So far, so good. And your anti-reverse, you can hear it click. Now, if you wish, you can go ahead at this point and go ahead and put your anti-reverse, or sorry, your drag star back on. And you can tighten it down a little bit by slipping the handle on. Okay. All right, it's doing as it should. Now, we're going to put this next trim ring back on. Before we put this on the rest of the way, let's go ahead and grease our eccentric and our anti-reverse. Sorry, our eccentric and our jack plate where they slide. And we're going to put a little bit more grease right here on the pinion, since I seem to have wiped most of it off. And we already greased down in the bushing, so that's good. Now, we're going to zoom back out a little bit. We're going to set this back in, like so. Line it back up with our post. Drop the first one in. Set the screw in place. Get it started. You don't want to tighten this all the way down. Okay, let's get one on the other side. All right. Let's reattach our handle. And it's got flat spots that have to line up. Just line those up. And let's see if we get some corrosion or anything in here. Don't see any. It took a little effort. Okay, let's install our handle screw. Much as I'd love to be able to tell you guys how perfect I am, I'm not always perfect, and when I make mistakes, I come back and let you know about it. I was in the middle of editing, and I realized I forgot to put this screw in. So I could have just hidden it by editing in as I install the screw, but I'm going to tell you, no, I forgot. So we are attempting to get the screw back in. I always have trouble with these little bitty ones. And we're going to add a little bit of grease here to help this process out a little bit. There we go. All right. There you have the J.C. Higgins Monospool reel. I do believe that it's very similar in construction to the Penn Monofill 25. It seems to be about the same size. I don't think the parts would interchange with it, but seems to be a pretty nice little reel. But it's serviced, ready to go. Everything on it works. If you liked what you saw here today, please hit the like button. If you didn't like it, I don't have a problem with you hitting the dislike button, but I would appreciate if you tell me what you didn't like. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, please feel free to subscribe. If you would like notifications of when new videos are coming out, hit the notification button. And for now, that's Rick Stivers with Young Martin's Reels, signing out.